Yeah, this set's already starting to look nice. I'm a big fan of this color of silver. I like the lighter silver and how it looks. And then you can add like by the time you get through like your other colors, and then like some Nuln Oil and or Agrax or Shade or whatever, or a little bit of both. It gets like a real nice depth to it, and still pops. And then you can still go back and do like a little bit of like an edge highlight or something like that, but it's not like ridiculous to the point where you have to like go back and like pull all the pull all the light back out of it. So, and that's what I'm basically going for. Like I say, in pretty much every video, like, being a good painter is not necessarily about like skill 100%. A lot of it is like efficiency too, because I mean, if you could paint something and it takes you like 6 hours to paint it, and then somebody else could like paint that same thing in 2 hours, and from 2 feet away you can't even tell the difference. Like, you might as well be the guy who's painting it in 2 hours, as far as I'm concerned. Unless you're trying to win a golden demon or whatever. So for me, it's all about like just be efficient, get a nice layer of color down, get everything looking good and on the table. And then if you want to go back later and pick out extra detail or whatever, that's cool. But in all reality, chances are if you're in this hobby, you probably got plenty of other things you could be working on, so you don't need to be like working on the same thing forever. That's one thing too, I think, that helps keep me invigorated in the hobby, because I know for a lot of people, like, they can get burnt out on stuff, and sometimes I'll feel that way too. Like, if I'm just like nonstop painting all the time, sometimes I'm just like, man, I do not feel like painting right now. And vice versa, if I've just been like building or cutting out or doing whatever forever, I'm just like, man, I really feel like doing some painting right now. It definitely like goes in cycles, and it's important, I think, to be able to like rotate. Like, if you wake up one day and you've been working on like the same army forever, and you're just like, dude, I do not feel like working on this army today, like, it's okay, work on something else. You know what I mean? Switch gears for a minute, and then by the time you like work on that for a minute, you'll be like, man, I need to get back over here. Like, I can't believe how long I spent away from it. And it might be just the day. You might just be thinking, I don't know what I'm doing right now. Like, and that's why I was talking about, like, with the holidays is like super effective for me, for sure, because like I love traveling, I love seeing my family. It's great being around my little cousins and everything. Actually, they're not so little anymore, but it's cool, like, just hanging out with everybody and catching up. And we go to New York every year, so we'll go to Times Square, you know, every so often, or like go into the city or whatever, and just do like the whole vacationer in New York type thing, basically. Do the cold for a little bit, and then by the time you're gone for like a week or two, whatever, you're kind of ready to just get back to your own bed and your own cozy little house and your own routine and everything. You know what I mean? You kind of just it's like anything, you take it for granted if it's just there all the time. So you like forget. If you have like a good job, if you just work all the time and you don't ever think about it, you might forget, like, oh, I got a great job with good benefits, or I make good money, or I have good hours, or I don't hate my boss. Like, whatever your main stipulation is for like you enjoying work, you know what I mean? A lot of times you forget like how good you have it, and then all of a sudden it takes like a kick to remind you. So that's kind of how I think about the holidays. Go and spend time with your family, have a great time. You got to get back to work, get back to your routine, but it's also kind of nice too, you know what I mean? Kind of nice too. So, but I am looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to seeing everybody. I mentioned previously, obviously, I really enjoy like Christmas season. I love all the movies and everything, like little comedies and everything, like Chevy Chase, all the Christmas Vacations, like one of my favorites for sure. But I mean, I enjoy like all that stuff, really. All the comedies and everything. There's a lot of good ones, holiday movies. But a lot of times I'll just run a movie in the background while I paint, and won't even watch at all, obviously. But you've seen it a couple times or whatever, so you can just laugh right along without even looking, or you just glance up for the funny parts or something like that. You know what I mean? Or the action sequence, whatever you're watching. But I don't have to tell you that. I'm sure if you're probably painting and watching this right now, sitting back, relaxing. But I mean, the key part of this really right here is honestly just kind of picking out whatever details you want to like stand out on each piece. I mean, you cannot go through and paint like every single detail on every single piece, but you want to paint enough detail that it doesn't look like you didn't paint stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like a fine line in between where you got to pick out like enough detail that it looks good, but you didn't like go so far overboard that you know you never get it done. So, and you'll see that's a common theme in my videos is finishing stuff, because I think that's like a huge problem people have. Well, I know it's a huge problem people have, but especially like in this hobby, for whatever reason, you know, you kind of like hit that blockade. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed because they buy too much stuff. And I think what happens is like, especially newer players, you start off like a little small or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I need to like expand to 2,000 points like as fast as possible so I can get a full-size game. And then you end up like, by the time you build all this and get it on the table or whatever, it's just so much like you're just exhausted from it, or you're just playing all the time, so you're not like working up to it. We do like escalation leagues periodically, and those are awesome. Like we did last season at our local shop. We don't necessarily get like the best turnout for tournaments and everything, and everyone's like very sporadic. You never know like, you know, if it's going to be a bunch of people or just a couple people. So it's kind of faded a little bit lately. I mean, it really hasn't been that strong in Myrtle Beach in general. So, but I mean, essentially, we did like, it's a start collecting league. So you could buy any start collecting box, and you basically could like field anything out of the start collecting box only up to, I think it started at 500 points, I want to say. It might have been like 450, just because some of the boxes I don't think had a full 500 in them. I think that's what it was. And then we like basically just escalated every week, and you could add in like whatever you wanted as you went. But you basically just like expanded your force, and then like, you know, by the end it was, I can't remember what it got up to, but you know, they were pretty nice forces or whatever, and end up with like a pretty solid army when it's all said and done. And then you had to like actually paint everything up in between weeks or whatever, so you know, everybody was showing up. Oh wait, was it? I don't know if it was a full-on painting requirement. Now that I think about it, it might not have been full-on painting requirement, because I think some people didn't have their stuff painted up. But I mean, overall, like that, just stuff like that, you know what I mean, is just a fun way to you know, keep yourself motivated and keep yourself on a deadline. Because the truth is, like, there's plenty of times when you probably like could have been painting, but you were just playing Xbox or whatever. And I think over time, like especially as I, you know, like grew out of my like, I don't know, like adolescent, teenage, even 20s years, you know, like you start to realize video games kind of are like straight up waste of time. I mean, they're fun for a little bit, and you could definitely have some enjoyment with them. But like, if I'm gonna play games, I would rather play Warhammer, and I would rather like, you know, you could work on your Warhammer for 3 hours or even an hour a night or whatever, and at the end of the year, you'll have 365 hours that you put into your Warhammer, guys, and probably like a lot to show for it, as opposed to like, you know, if you just play Call of Duty every night for an hour, like at the end of the year, like you probably just have like some unlocked weapons and maybe some cool skins, and you beat the game. Probably like a decent kill death ratio if you play like, probably not if you just play 1 hour every night. Actually, you're probably just gonna get crushed by little kids anyway, so you should just play Warhammer. It's so funny too when you play like video games and you get schooled by some little kid, and he's like obviously like 13 years old or something, and all you think is, man, kid, like you got it so good. You get to just practice and be amazing at Call of Duty all day. Like the rest of us have to actually like work and stuff. And now in the world we live in, like you could legitimately get paid just to be good at Call of Duty. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Definitely open up a lot of opportunity in gaming in the last few years, as you know, there's essentially been like this uprising of you know, people wanting to like watch gaming. I don't think, it's super weird, like with Twitch and everything like that, I don't think people really anticipated like that there was going to be this many people that just would like watch videos of other people playing games. And now I think they're realizing like, wait a minute, this is a whole like huge industry, and you know, there's a massive potential in it. And I think Warhammer is really going to like catch up too, like with the streaming events and everything like that. I think it's just a matter of time before they're basically streaming like every top table everywhere, because you know there's definitely an interest. Obviously, you know, if you're not a competitive player, you maybe don't care as much about seeing like those top player competitive games. You rather watch like a battle report where, you know, there's a little bit of like banter and like, you know, it's a little more like, I don't want to say fun, but just a little more like playful, as opposed to like, you know, sometimes those top tables can get like serious and there won't be like any talk at the table or whatever. So if there's not like a real good commentary or something, you know, it's not always the most fun to watch. But I think over time, like, you know, we're just going to get to the point where we essentially, you could turn on a stream for like anything happening. And the cool thing too is like, you know, people are playing these games all around the world. So, you know, you might be on a weird schedule or whatever, but, you know, you could potentially like, you know, watch some tournament in like Germany or something like that, or China, or, you know, in the middle of the night when you would normally be sleeping. I mean, it's pretty cool. Definitely provides like, you know, a platform. YouTube and Twitch and all these other things providing like a platform, you know, for people to essentially decide what content they want. Because like prior to that, it was sort of just like, oh, networks decide like what's good on TV and they'll put it up. But in all actuality, like, you know, now people are watching a lot less TV and they're watching a lot more like YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. You know, and the networks and the big execs and everything are starting to like come this way. You know, obviously you see YouTube got bought out by Google. Like that's huge move. I mean, that's a crazy move. Tons of money in that situation. Like I don't even know what the dollar amount was, but I'm sure it's ridiculous. And then, you know, obviously like the amount of like ad revenue that Google's able to generate through YouTube now. Like, because even if you don't monetize your videos, YouTube now is like just sneaks in its own ads. So if somebody was monetizing their videos, you get like the double dose. You get the YouTube ads, then you get the ads like that they're putting in to get paid for. So essentially, like, you know, YouTube is like, oh yeah, we'll pay you if you put ads in, but they're like, but we're putting in our own ads anyway. So I mean, that's kind of rough on the people watching, in my opinion. Like, I mean, but I guess it depends on the amount of ads and the quality of the content. Because, like, really, if people, you know, if people like what you're doing, they'll stick around. Or they just wait. I mean, pretty much like 5 seconds and then skip the ad or whatever, like, your requirement is, you know, through your browser or whatever. But essentially, they're just looking for you to get. I mean, that's even just as good for the ad companies or good for Google, because they're actually getting you to like interact to skip their ad. So regardless, they feel like they've like reached you. It's kind of funny because it's like if an ad just plays in the background and you don't pay attention to it, it probably has like less effect on you than if like an ad plays that's so obnoxious that you like go out of your way to skip it. Yeah, we're making pretty good progress though. I mean, I like to just move around. I started with like a lot of the littler stuff and just kind of moving, but I may skip over and do a couple of the big pieces here soon, just to break up the monotony of some of these little details. Overall, coming out nice so far though, you know. It's like to slowly go through, get a little bit of color on it, and I mean it's really just about the layers, because if you put enough nice layers of color on something, and then come in with the wash at the end or whatever, like it's gonna look awesome. As long as you don't pick like ridiculous colors or paint like super sloppy, you know it's gonna look good. And then I feel like with terrain too, like, you know, you're not like as meticulous when you're painting a model, but obviously, you know, you're still trying to make sure everything looks good.